We're following the nationwide outrage over video of Memphis police officers beating Tyree Nichols, leading to his death. Joining me now is Paul Butler. He's a former federal prosecutor and NBC News legal analyst. His work on race and criminal justice has made him one of the most frequently consulted scholars on criminal law and the issues of race in policing. He wrote the book Chokehold: Policing Black Men. Thank you for being with us, Paul. Let me ask you about this issue of a black man dying at the hands of police, but the police all being black. The conversation I was just having with Sonia Pruitt. It becomes about the power relationship which exists in racist policing. What is this? Is this part of racism in policing, or is this a weird power dynamic that comes from toxic policing?
All of the above. One of the ironies of this video is if these officers weren't in uniform and badges, the same thing that happened to Mr. Nichols could have happened to them. That does not mean that they're not as biased as any other officers. Statistically, black men and women suffer the same kind of threat from black and Latinx officers as they do from white officers. So it's important that police departments look like the communities that they're supposed to protect and serve. That's a necessary condition, but it's not a sufficient condition of equal justice policing.
Every time, you and I have spent a lot of time over the last few years watching videos in which people subsequently die. They're all a little bit different. In South Carolina, Walter Scott was running away from police, and we watched him get shot, also contrary to what the police officer said. In Minneapolis, we saw George Floyd's life getting snuffed out. This was unusual in terms of its active violence and the energy that the police had that the victim didn't actually seem to be mirroring. I mean, he was obviously very, very scared with what was going on, but he actually seemed to be the calmest voice in the crowd. What do you think was going on there?
So what the video shows is an American citizen who apparently has done nothing wrong being tortured and executed by armed agents of the state. And afterwards, you see them fist bumping. This is warrior policing on steroids. If you ask these cops what they were doing, they would say their jobs.
Right.
They would say that they want to demonstrate that they're the biggest, toughest, baddest crew on the street. And Mr. Nichols sealed his fate when he ran, and for 8 minutes, those officers had to chase him. They were going to make him learn that day. One of the officers said that they should kick his ass, they should stomp his ass, and that's exactly what those officers did.
So there are a lot of people who don't fear interactions with police who would say, why would you run if you did nothing wrong? Now, let's just point out the fact that he ran after he had spent several minutes on the ground saying that he's complying with what they're asking for, but it seemed inconsistent. They're saying, get on the ground. He says, I'm on the ground. The video shows that he's on the ground, but they wanted him on the ground in a different way than he was on the ground. They're holding his arms, and yet they want him flat on the ground. So he, at some point, makes the decision to run away. Let's just talk a little bit about why he would have had a fear that would have caused him, a 140-pound man, to run away from 5 armed police.
So what happens is that he stopped for apparently no reason. He says, I didn't do anything wrong. Then they try to yank him out of the car. They tase him. They pepper spray him. They're cursing and screaming at him. He does what I would have done if I was attacked by 5 armed thugs. I would have run, especially if my mother's house was 100 yards away. And again, they're going to try to make him pay for that. This is, it's as a black man, it's really hard to think that this could happen in this country, but the reality is that it happens all of the time, especially with these squads. People have pointed out that Mr. Nichols was 145 pounds and suffered from Crohn's disease. When you get arrested in Tennessee, they take your measurements. All 5 of the officers who were arrested were over 200 pounds. 2 of them were college football players. That's part of their qualification for the kind of police work that they do.
We were talking to the Attorney General from Minnesota, Keith Ellison, last night about the prosecution of George Floyd. And you'll remember that because you and I covered that a lot together. It was not a slam dunk. It looked like it. People who saw the video say, hey, this is going to be obvious. But it's never obvious, in part because when they were selecting a jury, they asked members of the jury, do you believe in Black Lives Matter? Have you ever experienced racism yourself? with the idea that that kind of thing could be disqualifying. They're going to bring up all sorts of things. Last night, there was reference on the video to the fact that he may have tried to grab the police officer's gun. There was some reference to him maybe being on something on a different network. They're talking about toxicology reports. They tried to do that with George Floyd, right? They tried to convince you that George Floyd died of something else.
Yes.
This is not as obvious as watching that video makes it. It's not that obvious.
The defense is always to blame the victim and to say that the police acted reasonably. I think based on this video, it's very hard to accept that, and it should be hard for a juror. But as you say, every case is different. These are 5 different officers who are charged. They're going to try to point the finger at each other. As you say, they're going to say, well, we didn't kill Mr. Nichols. He died of some other cause. And all the prosecution needs is one juror to go with them. Jurors are often sympathetic to the police, but we have to give the Movement for Black Lives credit because it's responsible for these officers being fired so quickly. It's responsible for the fact that there are criminal prosecutions. It's responsible for the fact that there weren't violent protests last night, because what the violence is usually about is getting officers charged. And because of the success of the movement, these officers were charged.
But one thing Keith Ellison said last night is because of the success of the movement, everyone sees these videos now, which in jury selection can be seen as prejudicial.
It may be seen as prejudicial, but you wouldn't want a juror who didn't respond to this video with human empathy. That doesn't mean that they can't put aside their emotion and judge the case fairly.
Paul, thank you for your help in analyzing this. We always appreciate it. And I'm sorry that it's always about things like this. Paul Butler is a professor at Georgetown School of Law. He's an NBC News legal analyst and a former federal prosecutor. He's also the author of Chokehold, Policing Black Men.